Hello, and welcome back to the Up and Coming Artist Podcast. I am Christian, a photographer.
And I'm Ben, an animator. Christian, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Man, I just really want to listen to some great music.
Yes, I needed a cheesy transition to get into this podcast. Well, guess what, Christian? I know you wouldn't know it, but we're actually in the house of a musician right now.
What? No way.
He is, and this is my quick, like I wrote it up in 3-second version, multi-talented, incredible musician, band director, husband, father, visual artist, though we probably won't get too much into that because he's super, super busy, but he's also the creator of Good Luck Ugly.
That's like my favorite band.
And this is Mike Alvarez. How's it going, man?
Hi, guys. Did you rehearse that?
No, we just made that up on the spot. But we're so cheesy.
That's
that
perfect.
It kind of works.
It felt so natural.
It's because Christian and I are basically the same person.
Got it.
So it just fills up tongues. But man, how are you doing?
I'm good. Busy, but very, very good.
Yeah, you were just telling us right before the podcast about all these projects you have going on. Can you just briefly describe yourself better than I just described you and all these projects you have going on?
So I have my band, Good Luck Ugly, which we have an album coming out at the end of November.
Wow.
So we're finishing that up. Which we have live shows going on. So we have all of that. Plus, like you said, I'm a band director, so I have 5 music classes, but 3 different types of classes, so they're not 5 of the same music class. I'm working on 2 musicals, writing. One is writing everything, and one is just writing the music for it. I'm working on trying to get on board with a kids' TV show to do music for it.
That's crazy.
And I think that's it. Oh, and I lead worship at my church, so that's just another thing.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
I'd be jazzed if I had one of those jobs. That's so crazy.
Well, only one of them is a job, and the other one I'm doing for free, essentially.
But it just kind of goes to show how much skill you do have, that you're able to balance all that stuff. And then you have us over for a podcast. So thanks again, man.
Balance is a very gracious word.
Yeah. Well,
it's mostly teetering.
Yeah.
I'm drowning, but I'm having fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to kind of bring it back to how we met, I remember the first real conversation I had with you was a worship team meeting. We were in the back eating pizza, and you were just talking about how you've traveled the world through doing music. And that's definitely something I want to get into in a second here. But since that time, I've been like, oh, this is a guy I want to learn from in terms of music. So that's why I'm so glad to be able to get you on the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's very humbling. Thank you.
Okay, so just to kind of break down a few of the things that you just mentioned, like band directing. Mm-hmm. I don't even really know what that is. Can you even get into that or even talk about some of the musicals that you're working on?
So, band directing... The grand scope of it is you are essentially the CEO of a band, and you're controlling what is heard, what is seen, what is learned, what is focused on. I have 3 different groups. I have 2 concert band groups, which is your standard trumpet, saxophone, flute, percussion kind of group. I have a mariachi group, which is actually becoming more popular, but is actually still building itself. And I mean that building itself within academia, period. Like, there are more groups popping up at high schools and stuff, but it's still a very, unwalked
territory.
Road. Yeah. And then I have 2 guitar classes. And so those are beginning guitars. And band directing usually is, you're in high school, so I teach high school. Usually it's, you already have some students who've established music, and they already get the basics of it, and you're giving them the music, and you're building the skill that they already have. Where I'm at right now, about 70% of the students have never done music before. So I'm teaching, a big spectrum of music, from students with special needs to students who've done it a long time.
Wow.
So the spectrum's pretty big. And I think that's what makes it really busy right now, is because trying to find the right way to teach, because you want to teach theory, you want to teach history, you want to teach how to actually perform and how to play an instrument. So you're doing a bunch of things, essentially 5 hours a week.
Wow. And
that's all the time I really get with a class, is 5 hours a week.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's what it is. I think on a normal scale, like, there's a lot of stuff you're doing. That it's a really all-encompassing job. So, like, we're starting out, so we're not doing a lot of things you would normally do, but a band director not only chooses the music, but does promotions for the music, builds concerts, does fundraising, figures out all sorts of different things. That's stuff I did last year. This year, it's mostly just, hey, if we can get the kids to play their instruments and play one concert, we've had a successful year, because a lot of these kids have never done music ever.
Wow. What you were saying is you're kind of like the marketer, the advertiser.
Yeah.
Do you also have to like figure out, like, not costume isn't the right word, but you know I'm trying to say.
You do figure out uniforms.
Yeah.
Again, with song choice, like, the thing that makes song choice difficult is every year you get a new batch of kids, which is a different level. You know, the songs you chose the year prior, you might not be able to choose the next year,
right?
Because of the level. And eventually, groups build up a pretty decent repertoire. Like, I know my high school band director has like it's got to be 1,000 songs to choose from in his library. I have none right now, so that changes everything. And then, you know, the standard things of, like, conducting, and leading the group and tuning them and knowing the musical portion. And then, you know, depending on where you are, depending on the gravity of how education is treated, like, you're a standard teacher, meaning that you're building, like, written curriculum to define what you're doing, even though music is sometimes not definable in those terms.
Right.
You still have to do it. And so, like,
you
that's the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only the school, to the state,
Right.
to accreditation boards. Like, I'm not physically showing it, but I'm making it to then be shown.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
that's crazy.
yeah.
That's
So, like, you're constantly just like, oh, there's something else I got to do. Okay.
Yeah. And you got to know all those instruments, right? Or at least a little bit?
You have to know them a little bit. I'm not a flautist. I don't play flute. But I have to know enough about it to direct someone if their tone is sharp or flat, or they can't hit a certain pitch. I have to be able to tell them the techniques to get there. Mm-hmm. And I know enough to get them there.
Right.
And if I don't, I am faking it until I know.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, just experimenting with them to get it there. The beautiful thing about an instrument is, like, there's like 5 things you can do with it, and if you've exhausted those 5 things, something's wrong with the instrument. Like,
oh, okay.
So,
what are those 5 things? Sorry if there's, like, actually not
just
5.
No, yeah, it's like depending on the instrument. So if it's a wind instrument, how are you breathing? How is your lip? So, like, is your embouchure, the hole that you make with your lip, is it in the proper form? Are your fingers in the right place? Is your instrument tuned?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, is there something wrong with the instrument?
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Uh-huh.
And, like, so those are always the things I'm checking for. I'm always looking at the lips, always looking at fingers. I'm trying to hear it. Then I'm like, okay, is your instrument tuned?
Yeah. Yeah. So as a band director, kind of knowing how to direct is almost like knowing those 5 things for all those instruments. So at the very least, you can.
Yeah. Thankfully,
solve.
not all those instruments need those 5 things.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if the snare is off, it's like you're playing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah.
you do play a lot of instruments, though, right? What do you play?
I play percussion, drums, so tie those together.
Right.
Bass guitar, tuba, euphonium, and then sprinkle all the other stuff to some degree of performing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can do scales and I can show kids how to play songs on trumpet. Am I a trumpet player? No way. But so I can make noise and play something out of maybe 10 or so instruments.
Right.
But I'm really decently good at five.
Five. I think it was five. Yeah. And did you grow up playing those, or how'd you get into music? And then, sorry, this is a multifaceted question. And then, how did that transition into career?
So, when I was 7 or 8, I saw the music video for "Welcome to Paradise" by Green Day.
Oh yeah,
because their Dookie album came out in '94, and as a 7 or 8 year old, I was like, I want to do that. That looks like so much fun because it's the music's playing, but it's a bunch of concert video, and I'm just like, that looks wild. That looks so fun. And then that kind of got put on hold. It was always there. I got really into punk music. My first cassette that I could actually buy with my own money was Americana by The Offspring, which I should not have been able to purchase. I was definitely not old enough.
Yeah.
I think I was 10 when that album came out. I think it came out in 98. I also bought an Eminem cassette, which is a really stark Eminem, the punker of rap music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really into punk music, and so I really wanted to do music. And my brother is 2 grades older than me, and so when he was in 5th grade, he started playing trumpet, and so I'd hear it, and I was like, "That's so cool! I want to do it." And they're like, "Oh, you can't. And, we don't have a class for you." And then when I got in 5th grade, all right, ready to go. And then they were like, "Oh, we cut the music program." I was like, "No." And then in 6th grade, I was so excited to play, and my brother was playing, I think, tuba at that time. He was in 8th grade. I was in 6th grade, and I was like, I don't want to play the same instrument as my brother. And so I picked what I thought was the coolest instrument there, and so I picked alto sax.
Mm-hmm. Is it the long straight one, or is it the normal?
It's the normal curved one. In typical concert band, it's the smaller of the saxophones. So there's usually a alto, a tenor, and a bari in typical concert bands. There's a soprano saxophone, but that's saved for Kenny G. And rarities outside of that. I've only seen one in person 3 times. Oh, wow. That's how often you use it. And someone's probably going to be like, I play it. Yeah. But
maybe you just escalated them to Kenny G.
Kenny G, if you're listening, I don't like you, so I don't care.
Yeah.
So I played alto sax in 6th grade, and then my band director lied to me and convinced me to play tuba because he needed tuba players. And he was like, the best tuba players are saxophone players. And I was like, what? Okay. And so I switched to tuba, and so because my brother played tuba, but he was gone. He went to high school. And so I started playing it, and then 3 years later, I found out that he told the other guy who played, I think, trombone. And he was like, who makes the best tuba players? Trombone players. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then once I got my degree, I was like, who make the best tuba players? Tuba players. What? Why did you lie to me? And so I started playing tuba and did pretty well. I was first chair in some I don't even remember what honor band it was.
Is that a full-size tuba that you playing on back then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was playing a full-size tuba, and then marching with a sousaphone. So that went on, and then in high school I played tuba, which we used converter tubas in high school, which they have an extra tube in them that you just switch the main slide and you can put it on your shoulder and play, and then you switch it back and then you can play it regular concert mode. Okay. So I did that in high school, but around the same time my parents got my brother a guitar, and I was like, I want to play guitar. Like, that's the music, that's my music. Like, I want to play. Why does he get to play guitar?
Forget
and they were like, well, you can't play the guitar, it's his guitar, so you can't touch it. And so I begged my dad, begged him, and he actually got me a bass guitar. And so I learned how to play electric bass in like 9th grade. And then once my brother gave up guitar, I started playing guitar, and then he started playing drums, and I started playing drums. And so that's where the multi-instrument started happening. And then, I don't know, like, I was always pretty keen on computers, and so I started recording when I was like 14 or 15.
Wow, nice. Like,
terrible music. Like, I still have my first recording, and it is awful. It is just terrible. There's no vocals. There's no anything. It's just like 4 chords. It's the timing's totally off. I get the idea I was thinking it was, but it was bad. So I just kept learning. I kept pushing myself, kept trying music as much as I could. I honestly, like, was always trying to run away from music as far as career was going. Like, once I graduated from high school, I was like, I'm going to be a history teacher. Because I love history, too. I was like, I want to be a history teacher. And then went through a couple of years, took a couple of years break, and then when I was going back to school, I was in a history class, and I was like, all right, gonna really buckle down, get my degree. And I had this teacher, and he was like the most racist guy ever. Like,
teaching history?
Yeah, it was an older African American guy, and I'm sure he had a great backstory, but he literally, like, his selling point was like, essentially, you know, the white man is the causation of all evil in the world. And I was like, historically, you're not necessarily wrong, but that's not a good start.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a good start. And so I was like, I gotta get out of this. So I went, and I'm like, what other history class do you have? They're like, we have no other history class. What other general ed class do we have? We have no other gen ed. I'm like, what classes do you have open? They're like, we have some music classes. And then that was basically the whole, I jumped in and basically pursued music after that.
Wow.
And so, it still took a while for it to become a profession.
Mm-hmm.
But that's basically the long story of, like, how that came to be.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And, sorry, did you have
I had a question. So, like, as far as that timeline goes, you said that you went to school, left, came back, and then it took a few years. Like, I know for me as a young artist, you know, I'm in the thick of, I'm kind of building up my skills, and I'm now I'm taking a break from college, exactly the same thing. Like, can you give a timeline of, like, I was around this age or around this stage in life when things started working out for me?
Now? Like I'm 30.
Okay.
And stuff's really starting to fall into place. I don't think there is a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've tried to look at, like, a lot of really famous people that I admire. And, like, John Williams is by far my favorite composer. He just takes all the beautiful ideas that have happened hundreds of years before and just reintroduces them through music in movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, he's a magnificent musician, but is anything he's doing new or, like, innovative? No, he just knew where to use it, when to use it. But I think his career really bounced when he was about 30. Like, I think he was about 30 when everything started coming together. Lin-Manuel Miranda, you know, he's a big influence for me because, one, Latinos in America really don't have a lot of influences. And he's an exceptional musician, talented beyond all belief, and really just creative. And In the Heights, which was his first musical, hit Broadway in the mid 2000s, and that was after 7 years of like doing it.
Wow.
So he was 26, I think, when it finally hit Broadway and it won the Tony. And with that being said, like, so like a Latino at 26, Hamilton was like 5, 6, 7 years later, and Hamilton is the one everyone knows.
Right. Yeah.
And so he was already in his 30s when that like took off. So I'm finding out that like a lot of people hit when they're 30. Like you see a lot of those young artists, and like those are a dime a dozen. The people who turn their art into a career, it seems like they're in their 30s. But after a long time of just grinding.
Right.
And just kind of working under someone else's creativity and learning and building yourself up and then kind of going through it.
Yeah. It's like the endurance is kind of what makes
I think so. You know, I've been doing music for 20 years now, and I'm 30. I started when I was 10. And that's crazy to think, but then also like seriously pursuing music as far as like career and like this is something that I want to do, like play shows, get out there, you know, put my name out there, try things. 2 years? 2 or 3 years? Like this band, this Good Luck Ugly, I've been doing the same music for years. Like literally we have a song out that I wrote 10 years ago.
Wow.
But like 10 years ago, no one gave a care to listen. No one cared.
We got the harmonic cussing. That's what we call it. We just put a harmonica sound.
Got it. Okay. You know, no one cared 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I really don't know, like, what makes a difference. Like, whether it's maturity, whether it's whatever. Like, my drummer has a degree in business. He toured when in the 90s. Like, he's an exceptional guy. And, like, I have no idea if it's what his influence has done for it, or if it's the music's finally reaching the right people. Whatever it may be, like, stuff is moving. Stuff is moving forward. And the truth be told, I'm not doing anything different. Like, from 10 years ago, I'm not doing anything different. It's just, it's more refined. It's more, probably it's more mature. And then I think it just kept going.
Yeah, you stuck with it.
Yeah. There was a while where I wasn't in any bands. I was just like doing music at church, but nothing like playing shows or doing anything like. And I have a really good friend. His name's Alfredo, and he's an exceptional, like insanely good trumpet player, and he plays for in a ska band called the Steady 45s, and endorsement. No,
name drop. Bring it on, brother.
But when we were in a band together, you know, we were just starting out, stupid kids. We didn't know hardly anything about music.
High school, college?
It was right after high school.
Yeah.
So I was 20, 21. He was 19, 20. And we were doing music, and it was punk ska, and we were having fun and just doing our thing. And it's just so funny to look back that, like, he kept going, and now he's playing with, like, legendary ska artists and people that we used to sit down and listen to and analyze their music. Now he's backing.
Wow.
You know, and it's just like everyone has a different road, and that was the road he pursued, and mine was very, like, subdued and, like, I'm going to be a teacher, and I want to have a family, and so, like, those perspectives, I think, change the timeline. Like, if you want to have a family and you want to make it work within a family, it's going to take longer. If you're, like, single and you're just going to be like, I'm going to grind until I make it, it might be sooner. because you can put the time into it.
Right.
But I can't put 40 hours a week into a band or a musical. Not yet, hopefully.
Right.
Maybe one day, but right now is not the case. So maybe when I'm 35, I'm doing music full time, like just music, not teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm trying.
Yeah.
You know, just trying to get it out there.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, and I think, like, all those different life skills that you built help play into it now, as well as, like you were saying, being a band director and having to teach those kids so many more things than just how to play music. All that stuff that you've done and built over the years is helping you there,
right?
As well as raise your family and do all this other stuff and come on a podcast
right.
with us. So so that's awesome, man. I think like you're saying, all that's not wasted. It's just like maybe the timeline's just different,
right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's awesome. Right. And so just going off of that, could you talk more about your band? Since it's like kind of you guys are, like you're saying, playing shows now and kind of you guys are blowing up.
We're an ambiguously punk band, like pop punk. Whenever I've had to do an interview or anything, I always explain it like this: we do the music that whatever I want to do at that time.
Yeah.
So whatever it sounds like, so what? So we have our single off our new album is a very like ska punk song. Mm-hmm. We have some songs that sound like straightforward punk, and then we have some songs that are like early 2000s emo, and we have acoustic songs that, you know, have like orchestration in it, and it's just like whatever I'm feeling in that creative moment, the band guys are like, let's do it. That's fine. We started in March, I want to say.
Wow.
And we never announced it, but our first show was opening for the Ataris.
Oh, wow.
Which was like huge. It was really fun. It was a really good experience. You know, getting to talk with them, learn from them. Chris, who's the lead singer, he's really the main member of the band. And so getting to kind of get some wisdom from him was pretty cool.
From the Ataris.
Yeah, and then, you know, we've just been playing shows, and I think just doing that is kind of, that's the grind. It's like whether you have an empty house or a packed house, like you just play the show and you play it like it's your last show and you just enjoy it. And I think from there it's kind of like we play shows and we play the same, like not the same set, but we give it the same energy. And you could have that one person who's just like, oh, let's share this, let's share this, let's do this. So, you know, we have an album release show November 30th at the Doll Hut, which we played a show there, and now we're kind of starting to build a good relationship with the people there to where we can have a CD release show there.
Oh, cool.
Building relationships with different venues, like we played at the Tiki Hut in Costa Mesa, and I feel like we're always kind of having conversations with them, like how can we, you know, we'd love to do more shows. And so in March we're opening up for Agent Orange, which is just a classic punk band. I think they're having they had their 40th anniversary of one of their albums, and it's just like they're actually one of the first punk bands that I really started listening to. So it's kind of that full circle. We have like 3 decade jumps. So Chris Benner's our bass player, and he was playing punk rock in the 80s. And then Eric Matson's our drummer. He was playing punk rock in the 90s. So he's, you know, 50s, 40s, 30s, and all of us have in some way like seen or been influenced by Agent Orange, and so it's kind of really cool to like be opening up for them.
Oh, that's so cool.
And you know, I'd love to see it more. I'm not necessarily looking for it to be like a full-time job. I don't think my wife would be stoked about it. Yeah. I think we said that the income would have to be double what I make now. Right. And then she'd be like, maybe.
Well, that's awesome.
So, but yeah, so album coming out.
That's exciting, man.
stuff's happening.
So all those songs are written by you?
Yeah, I write all the songs.
Okay.
I write all the songs. For the record, I do a lot of the bass parts. Basically, I like record the whole song.
Yeah.
And then I send it to them, and like Eric then learns it on drums, and Chris learns it on bass. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, Chris, you figure out the bass part, or Eric, do something cool here. But generally, like, I hear the song in my head and go with it from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that writing process go down? Like, you hear it in your head, and how you get started?
So, I guess, what is your process in writing?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I have a process because it varies. Sometimes I'll get like a guitar lick and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I'll like record it on my phone and I'm like, I want to do something with that, and then I'll build a song off of that. Or I get, so our single that's on YouTube right now, Coming Home, the chorus was kind of in my head. I was like, tell the saints that we are coming home. Like, that was just, that little line just kept rolling in my head. I'm like, I better do something with this or it's going to drive me crazy. And so I wrote the song and then built the parts and then wrote lyrics from the parts. I typically write the rhythm portion first. Like, I don't really start with vocals or anything like that. Dustin, the lead singer from Thrice, I don't even want to try to say his last name. The R's in a weird place.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
He did a songwriting thing where I think he said that he starts with the melody. And I've tried so hard and I just can never do it. Like, I always come up with the guitar stuff first, or there's a bass line where I'm like, oh, this would be cool. And sometimes even like I do like a drum line and I'm like, I can build a song off of this. Cool. So
different musical background, maybe.
Yeah.
What works for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So right now the biggest challenge, because writing the musicals, for one of them I have the script, and so I'm looking at the characters and the script and then going from there. And so that's been an interesting experience, because like knowing who someone is, you build a melody off of that. So this musical that I'm writing is about the school I work at, written by the students who go there.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm doing the music for it, and so they give me characters, and I have the main character who's like, the scene starts out with him waking up for school. And so I was like, waking up, alarm going off, and so I just have the piano just kind of going like, dun, 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 like that alarm going off, and it's just that, from that, the rest of it built. And then started building off of it. Like, there's another character, she's very ambiguous, she's the best friend, very ambiguous character, and so I did like a 3/4 time to kind of give it that like waltzy feel, because it's just like kind of like a sway in the ideas of everyone. You're just swaying back and forward, and so it's just like, it's been really interesting to go off that. And so with the musical I'm writing, I have ideas of what I want to do musically, but I've been really trying to build, okay, what are the scenes and how can the music help the scene?
Right.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that's about yet?
The musical? Yeah. So the title is maybe changed in the works, but essentially it's 4th and Main, and it's talking about a little community of people who work and have community in 4th and Main in Santa Ana. And so it's about a dichotomy of being an American but also being someone of a different heritage. And so it's kind of my story in that I grew up in America, went to American schools, but I had a very Mexican upbringing. And so like I didn't necessarily fit in with like the white kids, but I also didn't fit in with the kids who were born in Mexico and came here. So I had this weird, like, what is success? What is and it's a thing that everyone has, but it's also I'm having like different people tell me different things. So like I used to speak Spanish way better than I do, but in high school and before that I started losing my accent because I started to try to speak English better, because it was like if you're going to succeed, people can't know that you have an accent. And so like that, and I think that happens a lot, because I think if you asked a lot of Latino kids who are first generation Americans if they speak Spanish, the answer is no. And a lot of it is their parents told them they need to learn English.
Right.
And so, I'm this kid who grew up in a Mexican home that was basically only Spanish, trying to learn English solely from school and TV.
Yeah.
And so, most people don't even know I speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And that's because of that journey. And so that creates a dichotomy, because, I don't fit in certain places because I'm brown, but then I go to a place where people look like me, and I still don't necessarily fit in because I don't sound like them.
Right.
And so it's this weird world, and Santa Ana is very much that world.
Yeah, it's kind of the center of it, you could say, at least in where we live in Orange County.
Yeah, it is very much the center of it. It's the heart of it. Like, you have LA that has the highest population of Mexicans outside of Mexico. And then you have Orange County that is majority white. And then you have this one city that is literally the most densely populated city in the area. And that's pretty much where most of the Latinos are. 73%, I think, of Santa Ana is Latino in some way, shape, or form. And it's just like, I think it's a story that needs to be told, because I've been really inspired by In the Heights by Lin-Manuel Miranda and Miranda. I gotta say it right.
You say it way better than we can. Just speak English.
I feel like my aunt is the sweetest person. My aunt used to be a news reporter for CBS.
Oh, cool.
And her name's Linda Alvarez, and she was the one who sparked the pop culture reference of speaking perfect English and then switching to the accent. So she'd be like, "Welcome to CBS 2 News. I'm Linda Alvarez."
Yeah.
And and so I got to work on that, because
yes.
She taught me well, and I shouldn't let her down.
I know. I still go to the theaters and try to say Maria Menounos.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you feel like, because you talked about how you work in very different ways every time you write a song, do you feel like this is a new challenge for you to almost come at it from with like not only basing it around a character, but almost like basing it around kind of like a concept, an idea, rather than like a set of words or a set rhythm? It's more like I'm basing this all on a concept.
Yeah. The challenge I faced is, yes, it's a concept. So it's going to be a Latino musical. It's going to be in English, but it's about Latinos and it's about a Latino journey, which can connect with everyone, but it does have a cultural balance within it. And so like I was going to say, I've been inspired by In the Heights, which is about Washington Heights, New York City, which has a more Puerto Rican, Dominican influence. So the music is different. It has more of that like salsa, not salsa, but that's the best word I can say that most people would understand. It's a much more like dancey, rhythmic, like urban-y sound. And it has hip hop in it. And like I was telling someone about the musical, and they're like, "What kind of music do you want?" And I'm like, "I want to have like hip hop, blah 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 blah." And then I stopped and I was like, I don't do hip hop. Why am I going to write something that I don't do?
Yeah.
And then so I was like, so what do I got to do? And so I started looking up, the most famous Mexican artists. And, I was looking up people that my mom loved, like Jose, Luis Miguel, all of these people. And I'm like, they were in the 80s and 90s, and their music was like 80s and 90s ballads, but with Spanish lyrics.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my gosh. And so I started looking up like pop artist that I don't listen to pop, period. So even more so, I don't know what Mexican pop sounds like. And I was listening to it, and I'm like, it sounds just like American pop.
Yeah.
And so it got to the point where I'm like, I'm going to write this with music that I love. Mm-hmm. So it'll have influences. It'll feel like a normal musical, but it's going to have that Latin influence within it. And so, like, there was a while where I was stuck on one song, and I was just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this because I'm just stuck on this. I've never been stuck on something like that.
Right.
And then I had that epiphany, and I was just like, I'm just going to write a song that sounds like what I like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, it'll be music that sounds musical, so violins, pianos, drums, trumpets, trombones, all of that. And it'll have Mexican-style songs in it. So it'll have, like, cumbia and mariachi, and that kind of stuff. But then it, like, transitioned to where I'm like, I'm just going to write, like, ska songs and, like, punk songs. Uh-huh. And I'm like, Rent had, like, rock and punk songs. But is there a musical out there that really has, like, good ska songs? I don't think so. Yeah. And so I was just kind of like, there we go. Now I'm gonna. And when I made that like snap, I wrote a song like all the way through, and it was like it just clicked, and it was just like go 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 go. And so I think the challenge was, am I trying to emulate or am I trying to create? And emulating isn't bad. But if you're trying to do something new, it can hold you back.
Yeah.
And so I kind of freed myself up. And it got a lot easier from there. So, like, after that epiphany happened today, and since then, I wrote a full song. Today, and then...
You heard it here first, folks. Yeah.
So this isn't coming out for who knows.
Yeah. Like 2 months.
Yeah. Hopefully by the time this comes out, I'll have more songs.
Awesome.
But, so wrote a full song and then wrote parts of like 2 or 3 other songs, and it was just like, I'm starting to feel this more. And then what's great is like once the music starts, I've never written a musical. I've never seen someone write a musical. I've watched documentaries on it. I don't understand the timeline. Like, they don't explain enough. It's not a teaching thing. It's just like,
it's like
we wrote these songs and then we wrote a story, you know, like, la 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 la.
Yeah. And then boom, we had a movie. Right. A musical,
Like, you watch a documentary about how they made a movie or an animated feature, and you're like, that didn't answer anything.
Yeah. Like, we wanted to make a movie, and here it is.
Yeah. The best one I've seen was... 6 Days of Air.
Oh, is it the South Park?
The South Park one. That is by far the best documentary as far as like how something is made, because they literally go step 1, step 2, step 3, because they did it in 6 days. Yeah. And so they were like, this is literally, we've got 6 steps because we gotta get it done.
Yeah. Yep.
But with that being said, I don't know how to write a musical or anything like that, but now I'm starting to see that, like, as songs come out of, like, scenes I need to see in the play, because there's the play side and then there's the musical side, the story starts to come out because the songs are being made. And I didn't have that. You know, I have a friend in Oregon, and she's going to be publishing a book soon, so she's, like, a legit writer. Not self-published, like a publisher is doing it, and she's just been helping with ideas and stuff like that, and from there that's been challenging. I think the story part is going to be the most challenging part, because like I've never written a full script before. I love movies and I love musicals and I love TV and I love plays, so I understand structure and I understand story. But it's also like, oh gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So being able to actually write songs has actually influenced that and made that like less stressful.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. I don't think there is a right way to do it, but that's kind of my process now, is like build the songs for the scenes you need to see, write the scenes within it, because I know what's happening. So essentially, the biggest issue in Santa Ana right now, outside of the poverty rate, is there's a big push for gentrification to occur. Not only will that affect the setting up for the middle class, but majority of people who are impoverished in Santa Ana are Latino. So, by that, any gentrification that occurs to the Latino population. So, it's going to be following a young man named Ramon who has just graduated from college, and it's his summer between his bachelor's degree and whether he's going to go to graduate school. And he's been accepted. All the paperwork's good to go, but he still doesn't know what he wants to do. So he goes home to Santa Ana and works for his mom, who owns a restaurant that is a very low-key successful restaurant. Like, there's always a line and different things like that. But within this time, he's starting to notice that the shops that used to be there are no longer there, and now they're more, expensive, hipster type places. So, like, the old barber shop is now $180 haircut salon, and where they would used to get coffee is now like they only have kombucha or whatever. I don't even know what the stuff. Kale shots or something. So it's going to be this weird like back and forward there, and so there's a lot of characters within it. His biggest challenge is, what does success look like, and can he be successful as himself, or does he have to change to be this version of success that he thinks he's supposed to be? So it's an identity crisis, it's an understanding the world crisis, all put into one. So he's going to battle with, from his college. So he goes to a prestigious college. His college, all his classmates, their parents are like CEOs of Fortune 500, doctors, all of that. And so his understanding of success is BMWs, Malibu, and six figures. And it's also going to be, hey, there's also not a lot of people who look like you in this world. So you need to sound like them and look like them.
Yeah.
And then he's going to have his family side, the challenging side of it, who he doesn't see as successful because they're not living up to this, but they're going to be the ones that are very tight-knit and happy. And that's not to say that you can't be happy, rich, or have a healthy family or anything like that. But he's going to have a lot of pressure of like, this is what I think is successful. And it's like, is it?
Yeah.
Is that, because the truth is, rich people are the 1%. 1% isn't very much.
Yeah.
So not everyone is going to be rich.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is your version of successful? If you can be rich, cool. But not everyone's going to do it. So what are you going to aim for?
Yeah.
And so I think that there is going to be that challenge there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be a really fun story to write. It's going to be a really interesting story, I think. And it's going to be... I don't want to say it's going to be a new story, but I think it's going to be a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be in the turmoil of now.
Yeah.
Like, by the time this comes out, the caravan that is coming through Mexico still won't be here.
Yeah.
But, hearing people say things, hearing what the president said, me being someone who's grown up here, I have paid my taxes every year. I teach students, I teach youth. I've never done anything wrong, Yeah. And to hear those kind of things directed toward the people group I am a part of is really challenging.
Yeah.
And I think some people need to see that how strong Mexican American people are. And also we need representation in musicals, because I was I was looking at it, and like In the Heights, and then before that it was like West Side Story and like Evita, and it's just like,
that's kind of
we
sad.
don't have a ton of representation. And so I'm not going to be the next Lin-Manuel Miranda. Manuel Miranda. Forgive me, Lynn. I don't think you'll hear this, but forgive me.
Kenny G will forgive you.
I hope not. But, you know, I'm not going to be that new thing, but if I can affect some people in Southern California, then done.
That's awesome, man.
And do you just, like, because you talked a lot about the story, it's clear that it's very personal for you and that this is very important to you. Do you see yourself moving forward utilizing music for that cause, for the cause of affecting young people that are part of your community, and not necessarily being a voice for them, but being an example for them to say, hey, you do have a voice and it is worth listening to?
Yeah, I would have to say, like, you do music to share it. And so anyone who's like, oh no, I just do it for myself, then they're not doing music right. Because music is a community thing. And so for me to do anything, yes, it is meant to influence people. It is meant to be a voice for myself, for my family, for my daughter. Like, I want my daughter to know that when she was young, that I tried to pave a road that she could walk down. And not have to walk down it for the first time. And so yeah, absolutely. And I think it's super important to let people know that their voice is important. The thing that I have to balance myself is, like, I know my voice is important. I know your voice is important. I know your voice is important. But it doesn't have to be important to everyone. If it can affect someone to push them forward and advocate for themselves and to create equity within not only a people group, but within young people, within whatever color you are, whatever it may be, then I think it was the right move, and it did what it was supposed to do. Yeah. So absolutely, like, music, art in that is telling a story that only you can tell.
Yeah.
Some people do it way better, but your story is still your story, and it doesn't matter if you're painting or taking photos or animating something. You could do something verbatim to someone else, but because you're telling it, it has a different impact.
Yeah.
You know, Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't saying anything incredibly new in the reality of it all, but because it was him saying it, it had weight. He saw a line. He saw life. You know, he saw something that other people hadn't seen in that moment. Same thing with any great leader or change. It's not necessarily a new thought, but because it's them, it's something different. You know.
But, and I think that's what's awesome about the musical that you're talking about, that you're writing. Because like you were saying, with trying to find even just what kind of music you want for it, when it really came from you, because you're really the one, the story you're trying to tell, it became so much easier for you. And I think that's, like, super awesome and super telling.
Yeah.
And I think too that reaches into kind of like exactly what you're saying. It's just like, your story is important, so we want to hear it. That's why we're glad that you're telling it to us on the podcast. And so kind of with that in mind, thinking about all the things you've done in music, because you've been doing music, like you said, for 20 years. So you've had a lot of experience, and now you're kind of moving into musicals and your own band and all that stuff. So what advice would you give to someone, maybe even your students or people listening to this podcast, who are interested in a career in music, or someone who's looking to start their own band, or how they can tell their own story through music?
The first thing I would say is practice. Like, that's not just like a band director teacher thing. Yeah. Like practice. Don't be afraid to practice. If you're not willing to put the time into it, why should people put the time into listening to it? And so, you know, practice. That's like number one advice. And then number two, I think, like, you have to be connected to it. I think that's really important. I have a bunch of songs that I've written that'll be on this album that actually have nothing to do with me, but it was a story I saw, and that was my connection. I believed in what was happening. And so like, all the breakup songs I have, they're not about me. But, you know, there's still that connection there. Like, I helped those people while they were going through the hardest time of their life.
Right.
You know, I was with the person when their fiance left them a month before they were supposed to get married.
Wow.
And there was a connection there. And I connected that to music. And I think if you don't have a connection, it might be hard for people to connect to it. Now, I know that there's a lot of people who've created great art that don't have that philosophy. And people still connect to it. So you'll still have people who connect to it, but I think a wider audience comes by really connecting yourself to it. Like, a lot of the pop artists, they have big fans because it's catchy and it works and all of that stuff. But the people who, like, really care about the music, I think care because you're connected to it. And so you got to connect to it. And then, you know, so 4-point sermon.
Perfect.
Point 3. I think just keep doing it. I think there's a lot of ways to be discouraged if you see fans or hecklers or different things like that. It's really, really easy to be discouraged. But I think you just got to keep going. It gets hard, but there's always stuff you can do to make it better. Like, it takes me a while to warm up on stage. But once I am, it's like the best feeling I can think of. And so just keep doing it. Like, even when you play the crummy bar gigs or like a house show or something random like that, just do it. And then the last thing, be nice to everyone. I have a star tattoo. And the reason I have it is because the first band I was in, it was called Red Star. We were not creative. And we had some people who, like, treated us poorly. If I remember correctly, I think someone ripped us off. Like, I think we were supposed to get paid, and then we never did.
Oh, man.
But we were all, like, 18, 17. We didn't know better.
No.
All that kind of stuff. And we were just doing our own thing. But I remember that, and I was just like, man, that is terrible. Like, that would be so discouraging. And so, like, it always reminded me to treat people well, and you never know what's going to happen. Like, the last show we did, there was a guy in the headlining band, and he was just, like, an absolute jerk. Like, absolute jerk. And so, like, that gig, I talked with one of the other bands, was very nice to them, very kind, built a good friendship there. I bought the security guard a taco because I'm like, those are the unsung heroes of every show.
Seriously.
Because they're just dealing with, you know, snooty teenagers the whole time. And I'm just like, you deserve a treat. And it's just be kind. Be kind. Because you never know. You never know who you're talking to. You never know who you're dealing with. That one time that you're genuinely nice is the one time that maybe it's someone who's important who goes, hey, maybe I will give this person a chance.
Yeah.
And also, you never know if you're dealing with someone who wants to do it in the future. And if, like if I met my heroes and they were just absolute jerks to me, I would want to not do it anymore.
Be like The Incredibles or something.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't want to create a syndrome in the music world.
Going back to what I kind of began this podcast with, when we were talking in the back in the kitchen of the women's club, which is where we were back then, and just hearing your stories about music, all those points that you just made, I could see in that conversation. And then, of course, knowing you since then and seeing all these great things, like you're talking about, coming about due to you practicing all that stuff, being nice and enduring despite the hardship. Like, that's why I'm super excited to do this podcast with you, because I see that in your life, and then I see that going into the future. So that's awesome, man.
Thank you.
Great advice for everyone listening.
And for those listening, where can they go to listen to your stuff?
GoodLuckUgly.com. That one's the easiest. That'll take you to our Bandcamp. If you do Good Luck Ugly, we pop up because it's such a weird name.
It's a great name.
I made the name because it was one of those things of, like, you know, it's something that I've probably heard in my life, and why don't we turn that into something fun.
Yeah.
And so that's what the name.
Card.
Yeah. It's like, you're an idiot. And it's like, yes, I am. And I will put that on my card. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
You're like the Batman.
Yeah.
Just keep throwing superhero.
Yeah, exactly. And so, goodluckugly.com. There's a YouTube channel, Good Luck Ugly. Instagram, Good Luck Ugly Band. Facebook. Facebook has all our tour dates and everything. We have, I think, 4 or 5 more shows the rest of this year. And then 2019, I think we'll have 3 or 4 shows a month.
Okay.
Wow,
so
that's great.
We're hoping for just 3. We're all busy. We all have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram as Mike the Alvarez. So Mike the Alvarez. Because it used to be Mike the Aquabat, and I was just like, man, I should probably be a little more professional. I think Twitter, I'm Mike the Alvarez there too.
And the album, what, November 30th?
November 30th is the release. You'll be able to get it on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes. You can buy the album from our website. The art is very fun and like very original Nintendo influence. So if you like that aesthetic, by all means, buy it. Hard copy and
yes,
digitally.
Well, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be out digitally for sure, and probably.
So the date doesn't matter. It's out now.
Yeah, I'll just cut out all that whole part.
It's a late night.
So the album is out. You can find it on Spotify.
Amazing. I've heard the whole thing.
Spotify, Apple Music. Make sure to put it on your playlists and share it if you like it. If you don't like it, you can still put it on a playlist of songs you don't like. That's fine too.
Along with Kenny G.
Kenny G.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
And I know this is way too soon to throw it out, but your musical. So just look for that in the future is what I'm going to say.
Probably if it gets picked up or whatever, probably like 2020. Yeah.
Right, we're holding you to it. No, I'm just kidding.
You'll have to tell us about it when you come on our podcast again.
Yeah. I will totally do that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah,
Super
no problem.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for telling your story.